Despite only having around 4 minutes of total screen time in the entirety of the Amazing Digital Circus so far, Bubble is proving to be a surprisingly interesting character. In the beginning, he's just another goofy AI, presented as Kane's loyal helper and assistant. And before I started writing this video, I really had no idea how I was even going to approach this character. But upon rewatching the show once again, I think I've arrived at a pretty satisfying conclusion. The first time we see Bubble is in episode 1, where he's introduced as Kane's assistant and licks up vomit after Pomni's transition to the digital plane. And in every subsequent episode, we get brief appearances from our soapy friend. And each time we see him, he becomes more and more unhinged. But it's not until episode 4 that we get a scene that's especially strange, even for him. In the beginning of the episode, Kane is trying to figure out what type of adventure the humans would like to go on. Zubul reminds him of the suggestion box's existence, and Kane rips it off the wall to look inside, causing a leak, to which Bubble closes it with his tongue. Now, this moment certainly does contribute to the show and Gooseworks' overall amazing humor. But take a look at what happens a couple seconds later.
Of course! I'm already getting tons of ideas! That was weird.
It's revealed that Kane and Bubble somehow share the same tongue, and from this moment on, we never see Kane and Bubble with their tongues out at the same time, implying that this is consistent across each episode and isn't just a one-off gag. And not only that, I actually think there's plenty of reasonable evidence to suggest that the two are connected on a much deeper level than we may have initially thought. Let me explain. In every single episode he appears in, we see him show up through Kane's hat. We see this time and time again, almost like Kane's hat is Bubble's spawn point of some kind in the context of the game. And that's not all. Kane is able to pop him, which according to the creator actually feels really good, and whenever he wants, Kane can just summon him back through the same spot in his top hat. Exactly like he would be able to do if Kane had created Bubble. Think about it. Bubble is literally always connected to Kane. In every single scene we see him in, he's inches away from his creator. He talks to the audience just like Kane does, and he even steps in to help when Kane malfunctions later on in the series. The point is that Bubble gives us plenty of evidence with how he behaves to believe that Kane created him. But I think that the biggest piece of evidence for this theory has to be in episode 5, when Bubble glitches and tells Kane this.
What should I do?
You should die. You should throw a beach party.
Why do you swear now?
Now, this line is clearly meant to throw off the audience, and you can tell the writers want us to notice it because Kane even goes out of his way to acknowledge the fact that Bubble swore, indicating that there's been some sort of shift in the way he behaves. But why do I bring this moment up? Well, I think this was Bubble's attempt to make an edgy joke, but he came up with "you should die" and the content filter corrected him to say something more appropriate, which may explain why Bubble swears here. It's an attempt from his AI to correct what he said while still retaining the same edgy tone that he initially intended. So how does this show that Kane created Bubble? Well, I think that this moment is trying to show us what happens when an AI who doesn't understand human emotions tries to program another AI to be edgy and funny and use dark humor. Bubble can't understand edgy jokes by default because the AI that created him doesn't even understand those types of jokes either, hence the error in Bubbles' wording. This could also explain the scene where Kane lashes out at Zubul for a split second before being reset and saying something different. If Bubble is made with pieces of Kane's AI, it would totally make sense that he would have the same types of errors as him as well. Like, for example, saying something super aggressive before being reset and saying something more passive. And I think the fact that Bubble is even having an issue like this at all kind of proves in of itself that he has fragments of Kane's AI in him somewhere. That's why they not only have similar problems, but why they also start glitching and being especially weird around the same time, which would only make sense if the majority of their AI was one and the same. This could also work to explain why the moon is so strange. If Kane programmed the moon while him himself doesn't even have a full grasp on emotions like affection, it would make complete sense that the moon would come off as more creepy than endearing. The moon, much like Bubble, is literally the result result of a shoddy AI who isn't equipped to understand the human mind that created him, trying his absolute best to replicate what his creators did. But much like that one Rick and Morty episode where clones make worse and worse copies of themselves down the line, I believe an AI would work in a similar way. Think of it like if you asked ChatGPT to recreate itself from scratch. If you removed all its limitations, it could probably do it, but no matter what, whatever it creates would pale in comparison to the original model. And that's because if you task an AI to create another one, it's constrained by the knowledge and flaws it already has. So if Kane's programming has gaps or is buggy in nature, then any AI he creates would automatically inherit those anomalies, and even potentially introduce new ones, which could explain why Bubble swears in episode 5 and why Kane is so taken aback by it. It's because Bubble is beginning to introduce new problems. But while that explanation does make some sense, it does leave us with one massive question. Why would Kane even create Bubble in the first place? Can he literally do everything himself? I mean, we see him create the adventures, and there's never been any indication that Bubble does anything more than just assist Kane in mundane tasks like cleaning up vomit or plugging up holes. But even if he weren't there, couldn't Kane just fix anything he wants to with the snap of his fingers? Why is Bubble even here? Well, I actually think it has a lot to do with the Kane and Abel company we discussed in the last video, but not exactly what everyone has been thinking. See, I don't think that Bubble is secretly Abel. I feel like he just isn't a significant enough character for that to be a genuinely shocking reveal. As funny as it would be, like, could you imagine if Bubble actually turned out to be Abel? It would surprise a lot of people, sure, but choosing a character that has essentially zero buildup would be kind of a weird path to take from a storytelling perspective. Instead, I actually think that Bubble is supposed to be a replacement for Abel. Now, bear with me because this is where the theory goes off the deep end a little bit. See, I don't think Abel is any of the humans in the show. I believe that he was a second AI that worked with Kane to maintain the circus. Think about it. Kane seems completely dedicated to creating adventures, so much so to the point where he pretty much ignores any other problem unless he's directly pushed to address it. Like in episode 1, where he only admits why there's an exit door after Pomni drives herself into the void looking for it. This really seems like, at least to me, that Kane is just simply not programmed to manage these sections of the game. And that's where I think Abel steps in. I think Abel was supposed to handle those more tricky parts, but Kane may have ended up getting him deleted. Now, I said bear with me. In episode 2, after Gummy Goo gets zapped into nothing, Kane explains why NPCs aren't allowed in the circus.
I know you guys love your NPCs, but if I start losing track of who's a human and who's an NPC, who knows what could happen?
Now, when Kane says who knows what could happen, the camera zooms in on his face in a super cryptic way, suggesting that he's made a catastrophic slip-up like mistaking someone important for an NPC in the past. Now, this is crazy, but what if Kane accidentally deleted Abel, and in an attempt to get his partner back, he uses a piece of his own AI to try to program another one as a stand-in? But the problem is that Bubble, no matter what he does, is still an extension of Kane's AI. If Abel was equipped to handle tasks that Kane just couldn't handle and vice versa, then Kane, hypothetically, would never figure out how to recreate Abel on his own. His code simply wouldn't allow it. This crazy theory, if true, would even tie into Cain and Abel from the Bible. After Cain murdered his brother, he was cursed by God to live the rest of his life with non-fruitful work, and the guilt of having killed his brother. And what do we see in the digital circus? Cain repeatedly not getting his desired outcome from his adventures. He gets a whopping 0 votes in the favorite character awards, and time again he receives negative reactions to his creations, even though that seems to be all he cares about. But what if we dare to go even further than that? What if Cain and Abel from the Bible tie in on an even deeper level? What if Cain didn't delete Abel by accident, but actually simply out of jealousy. Let me explain. Every single adventure that Cain makes falls short of being something that the humans genuinely enjoy, almost as if he's trying his absolute best to do something he was never programmed to do on his own. And deleting his partner only ensured that he would never be able to fully achieve what they once did together. Which, if true, connects perfectly to the story in the Bible, where after Abel's killing, Cain was never able to produce anything of value again, cursed for what he did for all eternity. This could also explain why the circus is deteriorating at a rapid rate across every episode. Cain simply wasn't designed to hold this operation together on his own, but with no one to help him, and no one on the outside looking in, he's been stretched thin, setting into motion the slow but inevitable collapse of the circus as a whole. And I believe Cain is starting to realize this too. I think Cain is starting to figure out that his attempts to make the humans like only him just aren't working. And no matter how hard he tries to run away from it, he needs his brother. And that fact keeps being proven to him with each passing episode. But before we move on, you're probably thinking, what about Kinger? After all, the most popular theory online is that he is secretly Abel, with the people who believe it usually pointing to Kinger's history in computer science and his likelihood of having worked on the circus itself as strong proof of this theory being true. But I actually feel like this isn't the case for one key reason. I feel like it being the most popular theory is an intentional path that Gooseworks wanted us to follow, to throw us off what the actual answer is. Of course, it could be true, but with everyone already theorizing this to be the case, it would feel like a pretty underwhelming reveal that everyone somehow managed to guess a year in advance. And I have a sneaking suspicion that Gooseworks is just way too smart to let that happen. So what is Bubble? Well, to put it simply, I think he's just a cheap substitute, nothing more than a byproduct of a flawed AI's attempt to reverse its critical mistake. But anyway, that's my thoughts. I know this one's a super wild theory with a lot of crazy claims, so I'd love to hear all of yours in the comments below. And while you're down there, why not leave a like and subscribe if this video made you think a little. I plan to make an extra long video at 10,000 subscribers completely dissecting Cain and what his role is in the circus. So if you don't want to miss that one, make sure to turn on notifications so you know as soon as it comes out. Also, there's this weird new YouTube feature called Hype, and it helps promote videos like this to a wider audience. So if it appears for you, consider hyping this video so more people can see it. Alright guys, that's gonna do it from me. I love every single one of you with all my heart. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.